Okay. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education in the session. It is 5 o'clock. There's that echo again. Let the minutes show that Mr. Gomez, Mr. Cordova, myself, Mr. Holguin, I don't see Mr. Guadiana is on. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico. It is a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Hello, Mr. Guadiana. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second.
This is Gabe, I second.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any corrections to the agenda?
I have none, sir. No, sir.
Oh, for the vote, although, I'm sorry. Mr. Holguin.
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana. I think, yes. Okay. Mr. Gomez.
Yes.
Mr. Cordova.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carried. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of October 26th.
Cordova, so move.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Gomez, second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any corrections to the minutes?
I'd like to add one. Please, on the first page, the very bottom, it talks about me questioning the hours of the admin office, 4 days a week. And it doesn't have the response of Mr. Mendoza, which is that admin was working for 10-hour days. Oh, I'm sorry.
Was working for 10-hour days. Oh, I'm sorry.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also,
getting
I had asked the question about whether the week that people were given off in July was taken on vacation or not.
Was taken on vacation or not.
And Mr. Mendoza said he would look into that, that it should have been vacation.
Okay. I'm gonna put myself on mute here for a minute to see if it's my computer that's getting the feedback. Will somebody say something?
I'm not known to speak very much, but I'll do it now.
Could you hear me, Corey?
Mr. Cordova, do you have a computer next to you that's playing as well? Because I think that's where the feedback was coming from. I muted you.
No, I don't. I just have my phone and that's it.
Okay.
Okay, I muted myself and it seemed to not be there, so we'll see. Anyway, okay. You get those corrections, Irene? Did you get the corrections, Irene? I'll make sure I get them to her.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez. Mr. Gomez,
Mr. Gomez.
Here comes the echo.
Comes the echo.
Mr. Cordova,
Mr. Cordova.
Yes.
motion carries.
Motion carries.
Moves us to update on unfinished business. Approval of Sb9 election timing. Mr. Mendoza,
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, at this time, I want to yield to Regina. Hey, Regina, could you kind of just real quick explain the process that we need to do for tonight leading into the next needed special board meeting, please?
Mr. President, members of the board, superintendent. So tonight, you will just be approving the timing of the district's SB9 election. And as of right now, the district has decided to go out for a special mail-in ballot election in February of 2021. The actual date is February 16th. That's the earliest the district can go for a special mail-in ballot. You will hold a special meeting on November 16th to approve the actual resolution to be able to conduct that mail-in election for your capital mill levy. Your legal counsel will be going through filings of all the necessary paperwork with the county clerk and kind of guiding the district through all the necessary milestones and the timeline. And we obviously will be working with your legal counsel to make sure that everything goes, according to the timeline. And we already been working with the superintendent's office to help the district with some of the marketing materials as well. Happy to answer any questions.
You said that we've already decided to go with the mail-in ballot, with the February ballot?
Special board meeting on November 16th to approve that resolution to conduct that election in February.
Mr. Guardiana, may I answer your question? We're asking for permission tonight. The purpose of this meeting is for Regina to explain if the board has decided, and if you have questions about it, but tonight's the decision night to move forward to next meeting. The next meeting next week will not take place if you do not vote for it tonight. This is the initial permission from the board to proceed.
And if the board chooses to proceed, then that will then have the mail-out ballots go out in February.
Correct, but then we have to have another meeting to approve all the legal paperwork, the resolution, and the Cuddy Law Firm will take care of that. And that's where we give the Cuddy Law Firm the go-ahead to submit the revolutions and finalize the February 16th election.
So council has already been asked to move on our council has already been asked to move on this without having board approval?
Council normally does this because you have to review the actual legal documents, but they don't leave the district or they're not submitted until you all approve them. You have to actually look at them. And once you approve to proceed, the council then prepares them for your all review, and then we go from approval on a special meeting, then it goes in, then they submit it.
Okay, Then I have questions on the specific issue itself. We had a discussion last meeting that's saying that there was no consequence if we didn't do it now, because the expense of this would be, you estimated $25,000?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
And if we don't do this, it would go on the November ballot for free, correct?
Regina, can you answer that?
That's correct. The district doesn't have to opt in to do a February special election. You can go in November of 2021 for a special for the general ballot at no cost.
And
But we
you
would,
also
but we would
mentioned,
lose
Regina,
1 whole year of funding? Is that right, Regina?
So if you fail the November election,
No.
then you would lose a year of funding, and you would have to go back out to voters for a special mail-in ballot at the beginning of 2022.
wow. So if we do the February ballot and it fails, we lose a year of funding and we won't be able to go on the November ballot?
No.
We can't go into November ballot if we lose the one in February. We can go on the November ballot, but then if we lose the one in November, we can't go again for another year.
Mr. President, members of the board, so you wouldn't be able to go until 2023 for a general ballot. However, you would be able to hold another special mail-in ballot if November failed.
And so if we don't do the February ballot, as Mr. Sepulveda was saying, will we lose a year plus on funding if we wait till the November election and we were successful in the November election?
No, if you don't hold the February election right now, that February 2021, you go out for November 2021 election and you pass it in November 2021, your funding for SB9 will continue.
But if we don't pass it in November, then we're out of that funding until 23.
You would be out of funding for one tax year. So for tax year 2021, you wouldn't receive any funding for your SB9.
And if that were the case, then in 2022 in February, could we go out with a mail-in ballot?
Yes.
Okay. One of the things in my discussion with the treasurer, he said, if we do not go on the February ballot and we wait till November, we can sell the bonds shortly after, if they're successful, shortly after that election, but the money to repay the bonds will not appear until the next year's tax rates are established in September.
This is not a bond. This is not a bond. This is the mill levy.
Okay, but the mill levy, again, okay, the mill levy is based on tax rates and it's put on the tax bill here in Grand County and, well, in our district. And that tax rate won't be added to the tax rolls until September of 2022 if we pass the election, if it passes in the election in 2021. And so the consequence of that is that the money to pay back the bonds will be much later than when they become due.
We're always running a year behind, I think.
Mr. President, members of the board, so this election will not affect your collections for the GO bonds. You are not using your SB9 monies to actual pay GO bonds. If you were to choose to go out to voters in November for GO bonds, your tax rate would remain the same and the district would continue collecting enough. Even if you were to issue, let's say, GO bonds in beginning of 2022, the debt would be structured in a way that you would have the monies collected to pay for the debt service.
Yeah, but right now what we're talking about is the mill levy.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct.
yeah.
So which would not be affected by anything related to your GO bonds because those funds cannot be commingled.
Okay, I apologize for making the reference to the bonds, but with the mill levy, will we be able to, we'll be able to collect with that without it being on the tax rolls until November, I mean, until September of 2022?
So your collections would stop for Sb9. So you wouldn't, if November 2021 election doesn't pass, that's what you're referring to.
No, I'm saying if it does pass.
If it does pass, you will continue collecting. There will be no break in collections. If November 2021 election passes, you will have no breaks in collection. The same is if your February 2021 election passes, you will have no breaks in collecting the Sb9 funds. However, if November 2021 fails and you go out to voters, let's say back in February of 2022 or March of 2022, you will miss collections basically starting from December of 2021 through November of 2022. And then when the new tax bills will go out in 2022, then you will start collecting again.
Okay.
If
But
that
we
makes
will,
sense.
but we will have to put it on the ballot again, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
In February, yes, 2022, if November 2021 fails, that's correct.
Yes. The other thing that we got to remember is that if it passes this one in February, it's not a tax increase. It's just a continuation of what we're collecting now. The rate that we're collecting now is just a continuation. It's not a tax increase to anybody.
That would be the same if we held off till November, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, but the thing is that if we don't pass it then in November, then we got to wait a whole year before we can put it on again. If we don't pass it here in February, then we can put it again in November. But if we wait till November and it doesn't pass, now we got to wait a whole year before we can put it back on.
That's not the case, according to what Regina said. If it doesn't pass in November, we can submit it again the following February, within just a few months.
I don't
Correct,
think so.
Regina?
You can go back to voters in February 2022, but your funding will stop for a year.
Yeah.
Because
See, we won't collect anything until November of 21, I mean, or if it passes then.
If I may interject, really quick, I was looking at our Sb9 collections for the past 2 years. In 1819, we collected $526,000 in Sb9. And in 1920, we collected $488,000. The bulk of that in 1819 was 307,000 was copper production. And in 1920, 270,000 was copper production. So the question is, are we willing to lose 500,000 for a year and then try and make it up? Because the costs that we're taking out of Sb9 is maintenance and repair all over the district. That's the bulk of it. And then the fixed assets that we get from Sb9, like this year, we needed to buy a server to be able to run our infrastructure. If we didn't have that Sb9 funds at that point in that year, we'd be looking at piecing together, servers to try and even make payroll. Because right now, we run the Vision server is at end of life. So the Vision server right now, we've looked at purchasing the server to take care of what the servers that are going obsolete. So we really risk, if we don't have a year even of the lower tax collections of 488,000, if we lose a year of that and we are in a lean year like we are right now from the state, you know, we're really risking. So I ask you if it's worth the $25,000 to make sure that we have two opportunities to make sure that there's the continuation, isn't, you know, that it's not interrupted, at least the 488,000. Because I mean, we were looking at the reason that we went down now, and I think that we can probably not expect even this high, because, you know, the mine has been down, but they're coming back up. So, you know, when we look at the collections, you know, in February for the mine, for copper production, you know, it's what the question is, whether we're willing to put forth the 25,000 and have, you know, the opportunity of two chances if we don't pass this one and then pass November, or if we want to forego the February and possibly lose November, then we lose a whole year of Sb9. And I just ask if, because of the amount of maintenance and repair that we take, you know, from that fund, you know, are we willing to forego a whole year of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. My concern is a couple of things. One is that the maintenance and repair of the schools is deficient, and when you look at our performance on the bond issue, the $7 million bond issue, we haven't met expectations, and transparency is something that is a foreign concept to us in practice. We've been asking, and I know Gabe particularly has been asking for an accounting of the projects and the funding that remains available to be posted on the internet and explained as to what our alternative plans are, given that some plans seem like they're not going to go forward. One of the wonderful things about having this kind of format for our meeting is a lot of people are attending, and a lot of people are becoming more conscious that we aren't transparent with these things. We get this and we make obligations, and we even passed the last bond issue. The bond issue, the $7 million bond issue, we put down $1.1 million for Bayard Elementary, when we knew that that wasn't actually money that was going to go to anything being built at Bayard Elementary. It was going to go to cover the deficit from the previous bond issue. That's the kind of stuff that makes it hard just to go back, in my opinion, to go back to the public without demonstrating that we are good stewards and that transparency is up and foremost in front of the public. And so the other part too is that when we talk about COVID preparedness for reopening the schools, oh, we don't have money for this, or we don't have money for that. And as little as buying like the sprayers or anything else, it's like a priority, what should be priority, seems to be falling by the wayside. And I think teachers and staff are having to make up a lot of the lost ground on their own time. And that's one of the reasons I brought up issues about the amount of time that administration is working versus the teachers. And we'll get into it in a little while when we talk about the failure rates in the quarter and the amount of work that's being placed on staff without a level of support of additional IT people. And it's something that I think we really need to demonstrate better responsiveness, better management, and certainly transparency. And Regina, I appreciate everything that you're doing, and this is outside of what you guys do. We really appreciate your service. But internally, I wouldn't like to spend $20,000 or $25,000 on a ballot initiative if the public perception is that we're not managing these funds correctly. And just simply to say this is going to go to maintenance is certainly a very valid reason to have this money, but to show the disrepair of the buildings kind of says, well, are we managing those funds as well too? And so I wouldn't like to spend $20,000 of money that we could be using for equipment to help us prepare for the re-entry of students in January or February. But I understand losing anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 is a big hit. But it's a difficult thing to navigate unless we start really showing that we're accountable and we do what we say we're going to do.
Mr. Sepulveda, out of respect for Regina, she needs to leave at 5:30 for another meeting, okay? So, Regina, feel free. I know we appreciate your time that you came on, but remember you said you have a meeting at 5:30 to go to, and we thank you for helping us, and we'll proceed. I'll let you know the outcome here after the meeting. I'll give you a call.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. I apologize that I have to jump off the call, but I have another 5 minutes, so I'm happy to answer any additional questions you might have in regards to the continuation of the funding or the election itself while I'm here.
I appreciate your work, Regina.
Any other questions from anybody? Thank you, Regina. And I'm sure
Bye,
Mr.
Regina.
Mendoza will get back to you here as soon as we make a decision at the end of the board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, I think it's time to proceed to whether or not we're going to proceed with this action. At this time, the administration recommends that we do proceed with the election and then proceed with the Cuddy Law Firm presenting us with the documents that we need to approve next Monday night, next Monday at a special called board meeting for this item. So be it. And then we can discuss at the end of the meeting at what time you want to meet on Monday. And the Cuddy Law Firm, talking to them today, prefers to have a morning meeting if we can, because they don't think it should take too long, because they're going to send us the documents and then we'll forward it to you so you all can review them, if you so approve it tonight.
You heard the
Mr. Sepulveda.
recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Sepulveda, it's Gabe.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I boy, that echoes back. I was just gonna say that I agree with some of Mr. Guadiana's concerns. And I would just, it sounds like this Sb9 money goes to maintenance. I'd like to see similar to Mr. Guadiana, I'd like to see a breakdown of, how much goes to maintenance and what it actually covers and pays for and helps us to move forward on some of our maintenance issues.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. I call for a motion. Do I hear a motion?
Cordova, Gomez, so move.
Motion by Mr. Cordova. Second.
Second, Gomez.
Second by Mr. Gomez.
Second,
Any
Gomez.
other questions?
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other questions?
Can we address the issue of
We addressed the issue
providing information from the previous
providing
levy
information
and what it
from
is
the
we
previous,
propose to do with
levy
the new
and
levy,
what it is we propose to do,
so that the public will know
with
what it
the
is
new
we are
levy.
intending to do with this.
so that the public will know what it is we are intending to do with this.
My understanding when we talked with
My
Regina
understanding when we talked with Regina
was that they would provide us with
was that they would
pamphlets
provide us with pamphlets
and stuff that we have done with.
and stuff that we have done with.
Okay, I can add to that, Mr. Sepulveda. I have an
I can answer
email.
that, Mr. Sepulveda.
Oh, the
I
echo's
have an
really bad on
email.
this thing, man.
Oh, the echo's really bad on this thing.
It is. I'm hearing myself twice.
Yeah, it's. I don't know, Mr. Cordoba, you don't have another device. It's coming on your end. I'm having to keep muting you.
Okay, Victor, I'll try one more time. Board members, I got today, this afternoon, a flyer that we have to complete. And in the flyer, it says proposed projects that you're going to do and the other projects that have been done, and they're going to be printed in there. The flyer is going to be filled out. It'll be presented to you guys to approve whether we use that or not. But we do have the information, Gabe, that you and Mr. Guardiana are asking for. It's going to go in that. And once a flyer is approved, it's also stuffed in the envelope that goes with the mail ballots for the people to read and understand what it is that's happening. It completely explains what goes on with the Senate Bill 9. Okay, so that's coming for sure. We didn't get an echo that time, right? I guess we got it. That's good. Any questions, board members, on that?
Other questions?
Yes, will we have that information at the next special meeting then, next Monday?
You know what? Irene, are you on right now? I guess Irene should be on. If not, we'll get a hold of her. I'll have her forward to you that information that came in tonight. It came in email and it's got the brochure there that you can see both the front and the back, and it explains everything. Then it's got parts that we have to fill in. Exactly what you're asking. What have you done with the last Sb9 bill that passed? And now what are you doing? What are you proposing to accomplish with the next one? It's part of the mail out ballot. That's the stuffing that goes in there for questions that they may have. I'll have Irene send it to you, actually during the board meeting if she can hear me. Okay.
Other questions? If none, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova, Mr. Cordova, myself, yes. Motion passes. Moves us to review and status of school reentry readiness. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, I'd like to call on Annette Acosta. Can you please bring us up to date, Annette? Thank you.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, President, board members, Superintendent, Mr. Mendoza. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, hopefully. Wanted just to update you and let you know that last week, Bayard Elementary did complete their mock drill, as well as their pre-K class. They also completed their drill. San Lorenzo has received their paperwork to begin the assessment and planning of their COVID school reentry readiness. We've also identified and established the rapid response team with our point person for the district. And now we're ready to go into each school, primary level first, and then secondary, so that we can work with principals and nurses to establish the school site-based rapid response team. So we're pushing along. It's very, again, I said this in the past, a daunting process, but we are pushing along. And there's lots of changes, of course, coming up with their numbers and all sorts of things. But we're keeping on top of those changes so that we can implement them if need be into our planning, into our policies, everything that we're doing with COVID school reentry readiness. Now, where are we going next? That's what we've completed. So now where are we going next? We are scheduled already to have Bayard Elementary do their videotape on Thursday. So that videotape should be completed by the following week, give or take. Hampton Burnett is our, I'm going to call him a videographer. I'm sorry, Hampton, if that's not the proper term, but I would think videographer. He'll be videotaping, editing, and piecing it all together to get it ready to upload to Bayard Elementary School's website, as well as their Google Classrooms, so that they can start their virtual assemblies. There's a 6-part series of videotaping. We're looking to see how we can condense it if need be, make it more efficient, and just get it rolling. Bayard Pre-K is also going to be scheduled for approximately next week, at the end of the week, also to be videotaped. We're looking, hopefully, this is a very rough estimate, but we're hoping to have an isolation room mock drill maybe the first week or so of December. And the reason for that is so that, again, we can see, do things really work in practice as they are in theory? We want to know if a child gets sick or a staff member gets sick during the school day, the procedures and processes that are recommended through the New Mexico Public Education Department and the CDC, are those really truly going to work in our school site-specific plans? And if they're not, then we're going to make whatever adjustments that we can, keeping within the guidelines, so that we can make it work and keep everyone safe. We're also looking to conduct another assessment at all the primary schools, so that we can look at all the components of the New Mexico Public Education School Readiness Toolkit. They've already done assessments in the past, but we're going back in to do another one so that we can really break it down and look at everything that needs to be looked at and check off our checkoff lists for what's needed.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you, Mr. Cordova.
Do I continue?
Yes, Annette, go ahead.
Okay. The last thing that, again, I leave you with is absolutely, absolutely vital. Again, it's being said even more so now that the rise in COVID cases is coming around the entire country, the world. It's being pushed constantly that there are there are mitigation strategies that do work. They really do work and have been found by scientific evidence to work to lessen the risk of contacting COVID and the spread of COVID. So I'm just going for the record here that if all our schools and our offices in our district have constant and correct use of face masks, have proper social distancing to the largest extent possible, have constant and proper hand washing, not just a little bit here and a little bit there, but really serious hand washing and appropriate respiratory etiquette, have cleaning and disinfecting at least twice a day for frequently touched areas, whether kids are in the buildings or not at this time, just for teachers that are going to teach from their classrooms. And we do contact tracing in collaboration with state and local officials. We really have a chance to operate our schools, whether our students are in it right now or not, but so that our staff can maintain their safety. So I wanted to bring that for record purpose, bring it to mind, and also when considering reopening, let's look at those transmission rates in the state, in the county, and in our neighboring counties, because they're all going up. And then looking at the mandates and the recommendations of the New Mexico Public Education Department. Any questions?
Ms. Acosta, this is Gabe. Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Holguin. Sure, I'll try my best.
All right. So what exactly will be the role and responsibilities of the rapid response?
There's a point person for the school-based rapid response team. Those are usually the nurses. There's different responsibilities for the different people, but the nurse itself has a huge role in that. They are doing the contact tracing and consulting with the local and state departments and officials for COVID. They're also working with the point person for our district, which is Danielle Aguirre. No, is that the correct name? I'm sorry. Danielle Aguirre, she's our nurse at Hurley and Bayard. So they work collaboratively with her, but there is an array of responsibilities that the toolkit comes down with that we'll be taking to those schools, from education, training, communication, policy, and of course the actual procedures for identifying the COVID person while at school.
Okay, thank you. And then you
I
sort
have
of touched
another one on that. Go ahead, Gabe.
Mr.
Yes, so you sort of touched on my second part of that question was whose responsibility is it for the contact tracing? And you said it was going to be the head nurse or the nurse for the school. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure how to frame up my question, but I'm just interested in how that looks. You know, is she going to reach out to the teacher, coordinate with them, see who the student was in contact? How does that look, I guess?
There's a whole process for the contact tracing, and it's kind of like being a detective to a degree. So the nurse, who's the point person for each school site, and our district point person, Ms. Aguirre, she's already actually had to do some of the contact tracing. And so it's going to the individual people that have contact with the identified person. So if this was a crime, she'd look at from the crime scene out. And that's what we would be doing. She'd be looking at where the student or staff member was and moving herself out to different levels and then sending that information to the state and local officials.
Okay, and then I just have one further question. The last one is, do we have any lessons learned from other school districts that we can use to, you know, improve our efforts here?
Not from neighboring districts, but we do have from some other districts throughout the United States. And one of them is how we're spotting, how are we going to identify a student or staff member that may have COVID that we suspect, or one that just has allergies. And so are we going to send a staff member home because she came with a sniffly nose and says, these are my allergies, but I've had a sore throat from the drainage. Now we know we may not. There's more to it than that simplistic way I explained it. But yes, we are picking up different ideas. We also picked up different ideas for communication. We just haven't gotten on board to get it all lined out for our website. And Victor and I will be working collaboratively on that type of stuff. So yes, we have, but not a whole lot yet. Okay. We're trying to keep up with all the changes. Every district seems to be kind of, it's the dog chasing the tail, trying to keep up with everything that's changing.
Well, it seems like there may be an opportunity to help lead some of this lessons learned aspect of it, you know, pushing it up back through the PED or whatever. And, you know, just the lessons learned website would be useful for districts to share across the state what's working well and what isn't in all aspects of this.
I totally agree. I do believe that our website, we'll be having our website, but we'll be adding to it with different components for the communication to teachers, staff, students, community at large, looking at having the mandates from the governor and what recommendations come down. That'll go on there, but we can add something like that to it, because I do know that there is a consultation with superintendents, and I'm not sure if it's weekly or if it's every other week. But superintendents are coming down and meeting at the table to discuss what is working and what isn't working. What are the concerns in their districts? So things are being communicated that way, as well as your idea, I think, of putting it on the website so that hopefully we could help others and they can help us.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work, Ms. Acosta. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Somebody else?
Mr. Costa, this is
Yes.
Toy. And I just have a couple of, I don't know that if they're concerns or something, but I know that here coming up soon, we're having Thanksgiving. People are going to start getting together and things. And my concern is when we come back. I don't know if there's a way that we could probably not start school right away like we planned, but go for 14 days after that to see what happens. But then that leaves us with only about 1 week before we have to go for Christmas. And you know what's going to happen after we come back on Christmas and New Year's. And here we go again. So I don't know, that's just something to throw out there that we might start thinking about. Maybe another 14 days after Christmas. I don't know. Even if things keep going, my suggestion is that maybe we need to stay closed until the end of the school year and begin in the summer. The thing with that is that the teachers and students are just barely right now starting to roll in and get used to things that are happening, the way things are working. And then we come right back after New Year's and it's a completely new thing. And here we go rolling again. So I don't know. There's a lot of those things that going through my mind, and this is just me. The other thing that I have is this friend of mine had the virus, but the only thing he had was loss of smell and taste, and that was the only thing. And how many kids might be out there that can't tell us that they lost their smell or they lost their taste? So that's, by just checking temperatures, to me is something that I don't know. That's just me.
I can share with you. I agree with a lot of what you're saying as far as we don't know. The person next to us that's our best friend, we can say, oh, I trust you. Go ahead, take your mask off. Well, even trusting them, that person may not know whether they have it or not. And what I found is that through surveillance testing, we were able to catch somebody who had no symptoms, was asymptomatic. And so the scary part is we don't know who has it and who doesn't, who's asymptomatic or not. But if we keep up the surveillance testing, if we really stringently stick to those mitigating strategies that I mentioned, we could be face to face with the person and still lessen the risk of contracting COVID. It's not 100% guarantee. I mentioned this the very first time I spoke. We can't guarantee parents that their child or our staff members will not get COVID. But we can guarantee that if our principals, our administrators enforce the mitigation strategies and our staff members have a buy-in to doing that and do it stringently, we can definitely lessen the risk of the spread and of contact within our school system. Now that they get it at other places is a whole different story. But within our school system, yes. And I worry about the Thanksgiving break myself. We are creatures of family. We are like a pack mentality in the animal kingdom. We want to be together with our pack, our family members. So it is of a concern. I do suggest that now that we do have a district rapid response team, there are some very skilled, knowledgeable people on that. I do believe that if we pull together that team of people, look at what the factors are, and then come to the board or to Mr. Mendoza to make our recommendation as the rapid response team, at least it's not one person making a decision, but a collaborative group of people with expertise in various areas making a recommendation on whether to open or not open or extend or not extend. That would be my suggestion. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Have there been any incident reports completed? Because there's a few cases already come up. Have those been completed?
I can't speak to whether they've been completed, but I can speak to the point person, which is Nurse Aguirre, does have that form and has begun the process, and she's got so many hours to be able to complete it. So I can't say yes because I don't know, but I'm ensuring that due to her professionalism and the ethics that she has to abide by, she's right on top of it. Her work history has shown she's going to get it in there. So there would be, and that's it with our staff members only. If there's others out there that's family related, those don't need to go. But if it's staff member or student, yes. There's even a separate number that she reports to when it's a staff member.
Yeah, and those have occurred.
Yes,
So
yes.
one of the things that has become real clear is that it doesn't seem like there's a lot of communication when the occurrence is found to be. And that includes communications between the schools, communications between the staff, and communications with the community. They're non-existent. And so rumors run amok. And actually, rumors are the best source of information people have. And so how does that meet the criteria of what we're putting in place?
One of the things that is a misleading factor in communication of COVID cases is Hipaa. There are federal and state laws around Hipaa, and I'm not well versed in it. We'd have to get an expert, but I have reviewed them. And communication of a positive COVID case, we do need to protect the privacy of the individual.
Absolutely.
And we're not covered entities for Hipaa. We are for FERPA, but we're not for Hipaa. So we can acknowledge the fact that, oh gosh, we have 3 cases, or oh gosh, we have 1 case. But any other identifying information is something that we, for best practices, should keep to ourselves as confidentiality, but not under Hipaa or FERPA. Unless, again, it's a student, then that changes the ballgame. So with these adult cases, the communication has gone out. It's not a mass communication as if it was a active shooter case or something, but communication has gone out to individuals in the district who then do like a phone tree and make calls to other people to let them know this is what's gone on. And the point person has taken direct collaboration with the superintendent on that process. And then when it comes to the community, then it's only been through the newspaper. There's not a call that's gone out through like a school reach or anything like that. That hasn't happened, and we've got to iron out those things. We got,
yeah,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, and I agree with everything except for the part about no, it's just acknowledging that we have a case, but being specific to the school would be within the parameters of what information that we can release. That's certainly not a Hipaa violation.
Correct.
And so that level of information and the impact, and the other part is that people don't know what the impact is. The communication of, okay, this school will be shut down in some cases. In some of the cases have been going on, or it will be going through a cleaning process, which, we get told, and that's a good thing, but it's the communication to the community would help kind of get people's assurance that, okay, they're going to do the cleaning and then it'll be open on this date. So we can get their confidence up. That would be really good. So the other parts are like, if it's in, do we have how would you, a debriefing after occurrences and to say, okay, we did this right, we did this wrong, we're going to improve this way, or we need to change something, we're missing something. Is there a debriefing after these incidents occur?
There has not been, but there will be. This week, probably for the Hurley situation, and the hopefully at the end of the week, if not next week, for the Central. Now, I can tell you one of the reasons why the rapid response isn't as indicated from the PED toolkit is because if there's no students on our campus at the time, then our biggest worry is our staff. And so we rapidly respond to our staff and make sure that we get the contact tracing and everything done so that we can protect them. And if there is students on our campus and they were exposed, definitely, then we definitely have to turn around and redo this a different way so that we can communicate to the community at large quickly that there was a case.
And the information that I'm getting from staff is that staff weren't notified, and some students that were exposed, that they know were exposed, haven't been contacted. And that would be something that we should be on. I mean, that's a failure, in my opinion.
If that is in fact true, it would be a failure. I don't know that that's true. I'm not the point person. So it'd be when we come together with that point person to discuss this, that's definitely something that I think we should discuss. I would find it interesting that the staff members weren't informed, or that one. For me, as one of the investigators in the district for various things that come up, my first question is going to be, who's the staff member and why did he or she believe they weren't informed? And find out, did the call not get to them? Did email not get to them? Was there not a face-to-face with them? What was truly the issue? And who are those children, and how does she or he know that they were there and exposed compared to others that have been investigating it?
And that brings us to one of the biggest issues, and this is, I bring to the board as well as to Mr. Mendoza, is a lot of people, a lot of staff feel that there will be reprisals for bringing up these issues, and that the barriers that are put up to communication, and this is a big issue regarding communication, is that the administrative office is closed, it's locked, it's only available by appointment, and people are seeing that as a very it's discouraging for them to even want to bring up something and have to go through that and be so, it seems way too formal of a process. It doesn't seem like it's lending itself to solution. It's just creating a bigger barrier. And the dynamic of doing that is not one that is inclusive or inviting. So I hope that's something that can be addressed as well. But
I could tell you also that part of that, those feelings may coincide, if it's related to COVID, mind you, it may coincide with the fact that there's such a public stigma for those who are identified as having a COVID case or having COVID. And it shouldn't be that way. Well, there's no stigma to the flu. There's no stigma to diabetes. You just go do what you got to do. But when you've been identified as COVID, or you just sneeze in public,
Yeah.
immediately. Oh my gosh, the leper. So
Well,
I don't know that that's part of the reason they feel uncomfortable if it's related to the COVID, but I would put it out there. If they are listening, please contact any one of us. Contact me. I'm the least unapproachable, I hope, to talk about something and take it to the concerns of the higher people.
And those people that say that the administration office is not available by appointment only and things, well, by God, pick up the phone and give them a phone call.
so is the administration office locked, and do people only see people by appointment?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm
Oh,
asking Mr. Mendoza.
First of all, Mr. Guardiana, we have to comply with a 5-to-1 ratio even in the office. Before you know it, if they don't call in, we'll see them all, but we are subject to getting fined or being in trouble with whatever, but we have to comply like the pods. And this is the best way. You go to Bayard, you go to the schools, and they're locked. And I hope they're locked, so people have to respect what the governor has said. But Irene can respond to that, but she's sitting right here. That's why I got a mask. Not that I'm afraid of her, but we're kind of close right here. But what I'm saying is, yes, we're responding to the calls, sir. We get the calls, and right now Irene and I are working out of the special ed office, and she gets the calls over there.
And it is-
Uniformly, the concern I get is they don't get their calls don't get returned. There's nobody answering the phones, and there is no contact being made.
Okay, that's not true, sir. We respond to all the phone calls, and sometimes the people, when we call them back, I'm sorry, but sometimes we just don't make contact with them. But I personally will respond to everything.
I might just throw out there as well is that this whole COVID thing has put such barriers between people. Going to the store, I mean, you no longer can bend over and speak to the person and be social and have great interpersonal skills. It's closed. And doctor's offices, I can't go to my doctor and walk in and say hello for my appointment. I have to call and say, okay, I'm out here. I have my appointment at 1. So it's very unfortunate that it's not student, staff, employee friendly in most businesses, but it is being done that way in many businesses.
Yeah, and I would disagree that it's so much a stigma. Certainly, there's it's not a leper type thing, other than just it's very contagious, and I don't want to get it. And but as far as the staff, as far as an institution, the communication needs to be made to all the professionals, especially those that work in the building. It's not a matter of, okay, we're going to let some people know that we're immediately close, but if it's going to affect the operations of an entire facility, there's going to be spraying or whatever the case is. They need to know, and people need to feel like they have a contact person that they can get a hold of and that can have positive response. And everybody needs to feel that there should be, all the comments are welcomed. And even if they're false leads, because that needs, we need to break that barrier of having that wall. And it's not difficult to break. Certainly having people come in and putting a sign on the, like you see in many places, not more than so many people in. And then, but rather than locking the door and saying, hey, it's just not customer friendly. And it can be, it can be friendlier, maybe not as friendly as it used to be, but it can be friendlier. And that's the direction we need to make. I also wanted to ask, the district rapid response teams, have they been called into any of these that have happened already?
The point person has been, and we'll be pulling together, like I said, at the end of this week to meet regarding the cases that have happened. If there's not a need for, let's say, myself to respond, then I don't need to respond. Same thing as if it were the active shooter. If there's not a need for me to respond because they need me elsewhere, then I do other things. So the point person, the superintendent, I don't know who else off the top of my head did respond and was part of the process. Other than that, oh, the principals, I know that too, but not everybody has been. Now, when we debrief, everybody will be there to debrief.
And in cases where you have one-to-one instruction, like in special ed, and the buildings are closed, what do they do? Do they continue to teach with that one-to-one, or whatever the ratio is, 3 or 4 to 1, whatever the case is? Do they continue to teach in that school if it's being sprayed, or or do they go to distance learning?
I can't answer that because I'm not sure where they would go. I would imagine one of two things, either the distant learning or they would move to a different site. And I say that because I work out of Central at different points. And I have one student that I'm scheduled to see on a face-to-face one-on-one, and I won't be able to meet with him at Central. So now I have to find a different location. So in order to provide the service that the parent is asking for. So I would imagine one of two things, either a different site so they can provide that service, or the remote. I'm just not sure what the plan is. I know the special ed director and the principals would know that one.
Well, it's more of a either the principal or the superintendent response, and the other part goes if the teacher has had contact with a person, not necessarily tested. What happens to that providing that child the instruction they're supposed to get?
Is that a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is a question for Mr. Mendoza or the principals or whomever else.
Ms. Montoya, can you respond to that, please? In your
Yes.
case?
I will go ahead and respond. So if that should happen, our teachers still will meet with them one-on-one online during office hours. Once it's safe to go back, then they would go back. But all teachers have that capability to work with their students one-on-one, whether it be virtual or by telephone. But yes, so they'll still be meeting with their students.
Okay, and PPE, I've heard some complaints about PPE availability, like to dietary workers.
Is
Mr.
that
Mendoza, do you know anything about that, Mr. Mendoza?
No, sir. As far as I know, they've been supplied with a lot of the PPE, and we still have in the special ed office, for example, boxes there that need to be that they can just ask for. But in terms of Alma and her crew, no, I'm not aware that they don't have enough. They've got plenty of that,
And that's what our needs assessment's going to cover as well. It's going to cover maintenance, cafeteria, athletics, different areas of the district.
So it doesn't cover those areas right now?
Not when we go out. When we go out, it does. It will. But right now, what they've already sent out for the PPE is what they currently have. And Ms. Varela is the one who has the list of what's been sent out to different areas of the district. When we do the needs assessment, we'll be reassessing where are you at with that and how much more do you need?
So
as well as other things.
Mr. Guadiana, at the high school level, we know exactly what we have. And if we start running short, our nurse, Stevie Dominguez, gets notified, and then she gets whatever else we may need.
Correct.
So we have a running tally of what we have and what we may need.
And does anybody ever get denied whatever they request?
No, we haven't. I haven't heard of anyone getting denied of anything.
I would suspect that if they got denied, it's because they didn't have whatever PPE on hand. But other than that, I've not heard of anyone getting denied particular PPE as well.
This is Mr. Yes. If I might add a little more to that, the district has been pretty responsive in asking us what we need. So recently we got some more some more thermometers, and some new face shields as well. So they've been pretty responsive in our needs at this moment.
Okay, could you check with Mr. Diaz? Could you check with dietary, because they've been asking, I think, more for like the clothing.
Yeah,
protectors?
I can look into that for sure.
Please. Okay, those are the questions that I have for now. But I appreciate, Annette, all the work you're doing, and I hope that the communication to staff gets a little bit more effective, and there's some confidence given to staff that have reservations about bringing things forward, because that environment exists, and there's many people that way.
I agree with you, and I think that's noted here for me, because we do want all staff to feel comfortable to be able to bring concerns. Whichever direction they choose, or if it's with me, confidentiality is a must, best practices is a must, but also hearing, validating, and getting to the facts of what their concerns are is very important. So thank you for bringing it up, and I made it noted so we could keep that in the forefront.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you.
This brings us to item C, Mr. Mendoza.
Technology related to reentry. Dr. Jose was not able to visit with us today. He's out of town. And Victor Arambula, can you take this on, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, President, members of the board. I got a couple items to talk about. The first item is instruction. I was advised instruction is not going to be simultaneously and will be face-to-face, and remote will be whole class, small group, and pretty much consultation to students on a needed basis. Second item, all classrooms have interactive projectors installed. They're all wired over the network. As far as document cameras, we're working on purchasing adapters to try to accommodate some of the older technology we do have. Third item, we have supported a few teachers who have asked for modifications to their classrooms to be able to use dual monitors. This is being done to work. We have enough monitors for every teacher in the district, but this has not been a request from teachers at this time. We have supported those who have requested or have put in work tickets. As far as that, we're just waiting for responses from principals to see who has requested dual monitors, and not everyone teaches the same way. We're working on the gear grant, and this will be for, this is a grant that's going to be assisting in trying to get connectivity for the remaining students that do not have this access. Another request that we're addressing is the request for how to manage students during remote instruction. We're working with GoGuardian. We recently purchased or subscribed to their admin, the admin portion of it. We're looking into moving towards the suite, which will cover GoGuardian Teacher, which the teachers would be able to manage their students, redirect them when they're given instruction remotely, and assist them or get them back on track if they got off track. After discussing with GoGuardian, 90% of the school districts that they work with only use one monitor. You guys have any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that there won't be simultaneous online as well as in-class instruction.
Yeah, it's majority of it's going to be if it comes down to where it's hybrid, and like I said, I don't know the full answers to this because this is not my department. I was under the impression that when it goes into hybrid, it was going to be in person and remote, but it's not.
Is that true, Mr. Mendoza?
I don't know for sure because we're not there yet, but there's 3 options out there. One is what you just said, Victor. The other one is to even bring them all and lower the classes so that we can have all the kids here at one time. There's so many options right now that until we get the toolkit, and the Secretary Stewart says we're going to get it here last week or 2 weeks ago. And every time we meet once a week with the secretary, and it just changes and changes and changes. And now to answer your question, there's a lot of districts that are not going to open up after January still. They're going to continue remote. So that's throwing a lot of kids in it. But yes, Victor, that is, Jose Carrillo would be one to answer that because when he works with the state on the curriculum part, they have been discussions about that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this district's going to do it. What's happening is we're independent and we're going to do what's best for our kids. And if it's a hybrid model, half of the classes will be on remote, half will be in the classroom, okay? That's the only thing that we're considering right now at this point.
And that would be simultaneous instruction.
Correct. Yes, sir.
So I would really hope that we put enough effort to make sure we're ready to be there. And the simultaneous instruction is the most demanding as far as technology is concerned. A teacher is going to be moving around. A teacher is going to be lecturing and then helping individuals. And then some of those individuals are going to be online. Well, half of them are going to be online.
Yeah, but Mr. Guardiana, to also add to the problem, I mean, it's not just that simple as you stated it, even though it sounds simple, it's not. But look, we're going to have to decide, because we got a lot of teachers that don't want to come to school and work. So we're going to have to, what happens to the kids that are assigned to them? See what I mean? It's going to be a really tight situation to figure out everything. And I feel for Sandra and Pat Avalos, especially up there where they have all those subjects to teach, and some people don't want to come. They're opting to just want to work remotely from home. Okay, so until we get to the point that we decide when we're returning, we could completely sit down and hash this out.
That just brings fear down my spine that we're going to wait again to determine what the needs are. And it's clear that a hybrid model is going to be put into effect at least at some level. And yet we haven't looked at the determination of what's necessary to do that, being that we're not looking at simultaneous instruction. That bothers me. That makes it very, in the first place, identifying the cost of what an adequate model would be is important so that we could even start budgeting for it. If we're going to wait till the last minute again, we're going to be caught with our pants down again. And I find that completely unacceptable.
So then I disagree with you. You ought to see Jose and you ought to see the principals. You ought to see when they're here. We're constantly discussing the opening options. We're discussing what it is. So for you to say that we're not doing anything, that's incorrect. We're also involving technology. There's constant planning, okay? But we don't have a target date yet. And I, as superintendent, will not even recommend, possibly not even opening up till middle, maybe at the end of January, the way things were looking with this COVID, okay? But that's only me, okay?
That's the very same timeline I'm thinking of too. We're in concert with that, but only with that. If we have Victor under the assumption that there's not going to be simultaneous instruction when there is going to be simultaneous instruction, then we haven't done the part of assessing what the needs are for that. And Victor, I would also.
I'm going to interrupt you there. As far as not you stating that we're not ready, interactive projectors were installed prior to the pandemic. The schools that were lacking these were the high school and a couple classes middle school, which were the ones that we accommodated for 6th grade. All those have been installed. prior to that, like I said, not one teacher teaches the same. Everyone teaches differently. As far as like, people wanting cameras to follow them, a lot of teachers aren't comfortable with even sharing the camera they have on their laptop. And as far as the multiple requests on dual monitors, I don't know where you're getting that from, because we don't have work orders, we don't have emails to this point, and the ones that have addressed immediately. As far as trying to provide something like that to everyone, it's kind of impossible because you got a lot of people teaching from home.
That wouldn't make it impossible. That just make it difficult. But the other part too is that what you're talking about is being ready for the distance learning. You're not talking about being ready for the hybrid version. And that's what I'm talking about. And for teachers to come up with what it is they need without having an idea of what the technology can provide for them is kind of having them bridge a gap that we should be helping them with. In my opinion, that we should have a model set up and have teachers kind of take a look at what's available and decide whether that's something that they would like to employ. Like you said, everybody's different and there's different teaching methods, but the technology is something that should be demonstrated to them, not just say, hey, turn in a work order. I know I worked in an office that had single monitors and staff protested having dual monitors and having a lot of the information that they use scanned as opposed to being hardback. And once we put it in place, they would never go backwards. But it was a matter of showing them how we can, and we're making a transition to in the classroom that if you want to hold on to the old guard, it's going to make it even less productive than it is now. The failing rate here is way too high. And if it's because teachers don't want to come into classrooms or teachers don't want to add the technology that makes the student more effective in learning, then we got to bridge that gap. And I am definitely perturbed that we're going to wait till we get more information from PED when PED has already put out hybrid models acceptable, and we already pretty much in the opinion that we want to come back hybrid model when we do come back, and certainly looking at middle January, early February is within the time frame that I think we're hoping for. Mr. Sepulveda mentioned to the end of the year, and I hope we don't go that far. But if we're going to get ready for that, we need to get ready for it. And this baloney, we're going to wait till we get instruction when we already know that a hybrid is going to be a very complicated process to do. We should be working on that now.
Mr. Guadiana, if I could interject a little bit, this is Mr. Diaz again. I can tell you that as principals, we have had these discussions already. We have talked about what is the best way to deliver some of this instruction when we do come back as a hybrid model. The dual monitors, the distance learning and the in-person learning simultaneous has also been discussed. So we are in the planning stages of figuring out what is best, and that may look different at every single school based on the need, but I can assure you that we are in the planning stages of that.
Have you developed any models that show the potential cost for this equipment so that we can be ready and see what we need to do to make those funds available?
No, as far as as far as the money is concerned, we have not looked into that part of it.
In the grand scheme of things, money is a big priority, and I'm sure that you guys don't have access to, but that's the part that really needs to start being built up. And visiting a site that does that effectively would be an excellent place to start. And I appreciate you guys brainstorming, but you guys are brainstorming. And one of the things that you guys are going to be trying to recreate are things that people have already put into effect. And I would hope that the district allows you guys to go to places that do that effectively and get ideas.
You're right.
So Mr. Guadiana, this is Mrs. Montoya.
Hey,
The hybrid looks so different everywhere. I have talked to other high schools in Albuquerque, in Cruces, in Deming. A lot of the teachers, when we do the hybrid, will meet with the two Monday. So for instance, we meet with students Monday, Tuesday, and then a whole different group on Wednesday, Thursday. Those days that we meet directly with students are going to be the direct instruction, and then their office hours are still going to be used for the online learning. So they're not really simultaneously teaching and working with the students. They're doing the direct instruction, so they hit all aspects of the standards that they need to cover.
In that model, you would have students attending classes 2 days a week.
It's kind of like what we're doing now.
Yeah, but the hybrid model is that they attend classes 4 days a week, 2 days in presence and 2 days online, which means there's simultaneous learning.
Yes, except how some of them are setting it up. So, and I don't know exactly how we're setting it up. Like I said, I'm still talking to other school districts, but some of the school districts are setting it up to where on Monday, Wednesday, they're still meeting with their afternoon classes online, but they're meeting with the other classes in the morning. So they're not going at the same time. So they're still going to be kind of vice versa with each other.
Explore that a little bit more, because that's the hybrid model as I understand it, that they meet with some in the morning, some in the afternoon, but the other ones that aren't there, like if you're supposed to be there in the morning, you're there in the morning, but in class, in the actual school, physical school, but the others that are not there in school are online, and they're watching that instruction that they're getting simultaneously.
Okay, and I haven't found any school districts like that here that are in our surrounding areas. I mean, from the ones I've talked to.
Okay, I'll do some more exploration, and then
The other-
we get together and talk.
Yeah, the other thing that we need to remember is that the hybrid model, kind of like everything else, it's constantly changing. And if we do something, by tomorrow it's going to be different. It's just like what we did with our pods. We said 9. By the time not even the week was over, here we were with 5. And the hybrid model is the same way. We're still going to have to meet those numbers of whatever the state says that we can have in class. And so, you know, like you said, that I hope that we don't go to the end of the year. Well, I hope so too. But if these numbers keep going up, sure, pushing for that.
Understood, but the only thing we should know about change is that's the only thing that's constant. It's always going to be changing. And if you make the excuse of, well, I don't want to do anything because it's changing, then it's a recipe for failure. You got to plan with what at least the foundation is, and the foundation is pretty solid. The equipment is pretty solid.
And the foundation is what these people are working on right now, Mr. Juliana. And you should go in there and see them, but you don't. I keep telling you to go in there and see them, but you don't. Go in there and watch them work. We need to move on because we're way behind our agenda here. Mr. Mendoza?
Took 2 entities down.
Mr. Mendoza? Item C?
Yes, item D, it's update on how to move pods indoors, and that's Ms. Montoya and Mr. Diaz, please. Mr. Diaz, go ahead and lead.
Yes, Mr. Sepulveda, members of the board, Mr. Mendoza, thank you for the opportunity to come on and speak to you guys a little bit. At this time, we do have everything we do need in order to move into the indoors. The one thing we are lacking is the ventilation. I know that's on its way. We do have what we need, but we are not looking to move into indoors just yet. So at this moment, we're not recommending that we move indoors, just because the space issues that we have. At this point, we would have 38 pods, and looking into going into a smaller space. At this moment, we don't feel that it would be, that we can do it as safely as we possibly could. We want to continue with outdoors. We have some plans that Ms. Montoya and I have been discussing, and we will be presenting that to Mr. Mendoza at a later date, and then moving forward with that. So at this point right now, we don't feel confident that we can do that, especially with the rising cases, in a safe manner. We do have everything we do need, so for when the time is right. But at this moment, that is our feeling, and that's what we would like to go with.
Okay.
So, Mr. Diaz, this is Gabe. How you doing this evening?
I'm good. How are you, Gabe?
Good, thank you. So, you said that you have everything that you need, but except for the ventilation issues. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what are those issues?
Well, the ventilation, getting those filters. That's the only thing moving forward that we would need. We have our sanitation misters. We have everything that we would need as far as the PPE for the students. We have our kits ready to go. But I mean, you've seen the guidelines. I've given you those. Those guidelines haven't changed. So we do have everything. We would create a schedule, obviously, but at this time, moving 38 to 40 pods indoors and trying to do that in a safe manner. I think with the rising cases and what's going on around us at this point, we don't feel that it is the right time to move indoors. With 154 kids or more, that we would have to be rotating into a smaller space and an enclosed space.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I would agree with you on that. So what's the timeline on the filters that you've been given? Do we have an update on that?
No, I don't have that at the moment. Mr. Mendoza, maybe you might be able to answer that.
I can speak to that. They're on order, but well, we'd have to bring George Peru, and he's out of town right now, but I can get him at the next board meeting. But I can let you know, all I know is that they're ordered, and not all our units, as you all know, cannot run the recommended filters, which are the 13s, because those will force the motors to run a lot harder. And before we know it, they'll burn out. But we have submitted to the state our plan on what we're going to do and what we're going to have, and we haven't heard from them yet, but we have ordered, and everything's on back order like everybody else is needing them. So we'll get George to come in and give us an update as soon as we can get it back on. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Diaz,
Yes, sir.
Our next board meeting isn't until December, except for the special meeting that we're going to have for the one item. Are you not going to, then that's going to be consistent all the way through the first meeting in December?
I think we have to reconsider at that moment. There are certain things that we're going to have to look at. With what I do in athletics, I have to plan like we're moving forward, and the next sport is basketball. Basketball is next on the list, and that hasn't been canceled. That hasn't changed anything. So I'm planning on moving forward, and in that way, we have to reconsider priorities as far as the pods that would be going indoors. And I think we need to, obviously, I think we need to come back in December and discuss that, because until that changes, or until we make a decision as a school board to not move forward with athletics or not move forward with basketball, then I have to plan like we are moving forward.
That's a good way to plan. Have you addressed, have the issues in the restrooms been addressed, and are they up and working order?
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure on the restrooms or which ones you're referring to.
The ones at Cobre?
In the indoors ones or the ones on the football field?
Indoors ones.
Ms. Montoya?
The new ones that were just built?
No, the ones, remember we took a walkthrough of the gym and the restrooms, that they're the locker rooms? And there
Oh
was some
yeah,
rough-
they're ready.
They're ready? Okay.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, once we decide to move forward, I will give you a more detailed and comprehensive plan on how we would do that. And we may even have another video to show you so that it puts our minds at ease.
Cool.
So, Mr. Diaz, what does that timeline look like? When is basketball scheduled to start?
So if we do start, I mean, basketball games would be scheduled to start at the beginning of January. So we would need to give those sports enough time, as well as cheer. So we're looking at cheer and basketball. So those two sports would be coming up right away in January. So we would need to give them enough time to get in a physical shape that is safe for them to compete. So the time that they would need would be 3 to 4 weeks in order to prepare and be ready and compete in a healthy way.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, that moves us to public input. Do we have anything at this time, Victor?
No, sir, we don't have anything at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Moves us to administration, Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, so rural, it's an application that we have for some money. This is a rural low-income school application. Terry Hogan, can you please speak to this? Terry?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
So, the rural and low-income schools application and award letter came in on late Thursday. So, Dr. Carrillo and I sat down. The award letter is in the amount of $44,604.42. There's a corresponding bar in the finance section as well. The actual award letter is in that part of the packet, and the bar was emailed yesterday evening. So without going into the approval of the bar at this point, I will just go ahead and go over the application. The way that we found they sent the award letter, and we kind of were going like, where did this money come from? So we called the state. The state said that the federal government had money in the rural area, so they pushed it out to the state, and the state pushed it out to us. Like I said, it's $44,604. It's broken down in activities based on activity 1 coincides with Title 1 approved activities, Section 2 with Title 2, Title 3 is number 3, and Title 4 is number 4, and then 5 is parent and family engagement activities. They stated that it wasn't necessary to hit every point with every type of activity. So the bulk of the amount, $35,000, is budgeted under Title I activities. So if you look on Title I, the funds will be used to supplement the math adoption, which was discussed at the last board meeting as well. And as Dr. Carrillo stated before, we've been actively kind of looking to figure out which funding sources we have. And so, we were fortunate enough to to be able to use that as part of the math adoption, we have to remember that we can only supplement with grants. We can't supplant, which means we can't take the entire amount in from operational into a grant. So we're split funding this. So 25,000 of the 44,000 will be used for the new math adoption. I'll discuss the rest of it when we get to the finance section. Also, funds 7,000 will be used for the Go Guardian Suite, which is the virtual classroom management program that Victor said that we've been in discussions with to get an enhancement for the Google Teacher. And then also the remainder of $3,000 to use for supplemental equipment such as cable connections, that kind of thing that they need to be able to run their classrooms for connecting dual monitors. So that's the 35,000 that we can attribute towards Title I activities, because math is certainly a Title I activity. The remainder will be budgeted under the Title IV, which is supplementing the Title IV program. And because the high school is not a Title I school, we can't put the portion of the Go Guardian that is attributed to the high school classrooms under Title I. So it will be included here under Title IV. So that's, and then also for equipment for connecting dual monitors. So the Title IV section is attributed to the high school cost, which is the $5,000, and then the Title I is to the Title I schools, which is the elementaries and the middle school. Section 5 is for parent involvement, family engagement activities. So that is supplies and materials. It's $2,976. So and then your indirect costs to the district, $1,600. So that's your $4,400. The corresponding bar is quite a bit simpler because all it's asking is the line items. It's not asking for the sections. So when we get to the bar, we'll ask for approval, and I'll show how we consolidated those lines. So if there's no questions or there's questions on the application, of course, we're fortunate enough to receive $44,000. So we would want to write that application quickly. The application is due to the PED by November 13th, and the bar is due by November 30th. So we would appreciate action on this one, so we don't delay on the application deadline.
Any questions, board members? If there's no questions, Board President, I'd like to recommend that the administration recommends that you approve as presented by Ms. Holguin.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Gomez, so moved.
Motion by Mr. Gomez, second. Second.
Is the application, is this to approve the application?
Yes.
Yes.
I move.
Yes.
I move. Second, I second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any other comment? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova. Mr. Cordova. Myself, yes. Motion carries. Moves us to, item
Item
B.
B. Item B is a donation of a greenhouse to San Lorenzo Elementary in the amount of the value of this greenhouse is $3,900. And Mr. Corey, are you online to explain this to the board, please? Thank you.
Yes, sir. So, when you get the phone call, you always hope you get. I had a call from Stuart Rooks, which is with the Grant County Livestock and Farm Bureau. And he just complimented the work that we do out at San Lorenzo and said that they would like to donate a greenhouse to our school. So again, breaking our hearts, we gladly accepted. And so the original thought was they were going to donate $3,000. And then as you see, the price now was up to $3,900 with delivery, and they decided to cover the whole cost of the greenhouse and delivery. So the greenhouse was ordered about a week ago, and so it should be delivered to San Lorenzo probably next week. And we're working on site preparation now. And so we're leveling a place to put the greenhouse in. I don't know if it made your board packets, but here's a kind of a picture of what it's going to look like. It's from Mueller. So perfect. Awesome. So Mueller is the company that we went with. It's going to be 12 by 21. And then we've made the decision to go ahead and place a greenhouse near our pond that's down at the lower part of the property. And again, everything I look at is an educational situation. So we're going to actually set this one up to run hydroponics. So we're going to run two systems. Actually, we're going to run an open system that we're going to pump off of our pond, have a circulation system through, and then back into our pond. And then we're actually going to run a closed system where we actually feed the nutrition through the closed system. And then I want to set that up in two places in the greenhouse and then actually just put a bed in so that we're able to plant 3 plants in 3 different situations, and then students can see growth and the amount of yield and all the different things that come out of it. So I'm really excited to kind of play with this. And I don't know if anybody knows the gentleman's name is Rick Bohart out in the Cliff Gila area, but the gentleman is supposed to be the hydroponics king in the area. And we've already been in contact with him, and he's going to help us in setting up systems and getting things ready there in the greenhouse. So again, I can't thank our Grant County Livestock and Farm Bureau enough for their support, with our students. And in talking with them, it sounds like they want to continue this with other schools in the future. So hopefully more of those to come for other schools.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
Corey.
questions? Any questions?
Corey, that's awesome that you've got that. And could you send us Mr. Bohart's email that we can send him a thank you letter as well, or thank you notes?
Yeah, the Stuart Rooks is a gentleman I've been speaking with. That's the contact person for me with the Grant County Livestock and Farm Bureau, and I will gladly forward their contact information to you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Also, I spoke to Mr. Peru, given our conversation when I went through your school with you, and mentioned the plugging of the one area where you had the water and it had a leak, and they just plugged it and didn't run it out all to the area that you're talking about now. And that should be addressed. So I'm thinking you're going to need that.
The area that we've planned to put the greenhouse is, like I said, really close to the pond so that we're not having to pump that water very far. And we do have power and water right there at the location.
Cool.
So we're going to be ready to go.
And hydroponic is year round, so that's awesome.
Yes,
That's
we're
awesome.
excited. I'm excited just to take on a new endeavor. It's learning for me as well. So
I'm happy for the school, and I'm proud of what you're doing.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corey.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. President, members of the board, the administration recommends you accept this donation. And Mr. Corey, thank you and good luck with this thing, this project. The kids will really enjoy it.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move. This is Gilbert.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
I'll second. This is Gabe.
Second by Mr. Holguin. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Corey and Mr. Mendoza. Let's make sure that we send him a thank you also from the school district.
We will, sir. It'll be done.
Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova. Cordova? Myself, yes, motion carries. Moves us to finance.
Yes, sir. We have item A, a budget adjustment request. This is a series of 5 bars. Ms. Holguin, can you please proceed?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Mendoza. What I'd like to do, the first 3 or the first 2 bars on the agenda are operational SCG. So what I'd like to go through is, I know that there's been discussion and there's been back and forth, and the PED sent us an SCG adjustment in September, and they sent another SCG adjustment in October. So what I'd like to do is present what the SCG analysis that we came up with based on the adjusted 910B5 that we received from the state. If I could, before we do the bars, before we review the bars, because the bars are pretty much a culmination of transfers that the PED will need in order to true up our budget to what they've requested that we make adjustments on. So if you'll allow me to share and present my screen, I will go over that. If we can wait for questions, hopefully I can answer most of the stuff during my review, and then we can go with questions after that. So bear with me for a second. Okay, can everybody see the spreadsheet?
A very small portion.
Yes, but you can see that there's something there, and I'm gonna widen it here in a sec.
Yeah.
Everybody can see it?
Yes.
Okay, so what I've got here is that we had a projected budget in April that we submitted to the state and got approved on our projected budget. Then when the special session went into place in July, then they adjusted the unit value in the legislative session from 47.58 to 45.31. So that would be per unit. That created, when they did that created in our budget under regular ed, it created a deficit of 319,000. In special ed, 115,000. In bilingual, 28,000. In elementary fine arts, 7,000. In at-risk, 45,000. In miscellaneous units such as the small size, the growth units, 114,000. In homeschool activities, small, let me go back real quick to the one in September. Sorry, I pulled up the October. And then at that point in September, and these are the 2 differences between the spreadsheet, is that at the point that they adjusted the September, they said that they would be backing out the elementary PE units, which would give us that deficit of 186,000. So with all the units considered, it was 815,000 just in unit value. Then they had included the extended learning to the extent that they gave us 877 in our membership, which gave us from a $417,000 allocation to 437. And then they hadn't approved, at that point, they hadn't approved the K-5. So that was not in the SCG at that point. So at that point in September, we had $1,074,964 deficit. Okay, so that was created by the unit value. Now, in October, they sent a different one, which at this point, they decided to hold harmless the PE units, which gave us back what they had estimated before before they made the adjustment. So they didn't fund us on 652 elementary, they funded us on 628, which is historically what they had been funding us over the years. So the loss there was not 186, but 170 we got back. So the negative there went to 15,000. Now, at that point, they surprised us and they said on our extended learning time, they would allow our entire student population under extended learning as potentially being able to run the program, including that. Then they did the K-5 and they allowed 553 on the membership for K-5, which is our elementary. That gave us back the 133 and the 472, bringing the ELT and K-5 allotments to $1.3 million. So where the state adjusted for the unit value, it's still a deficit up here of 644,000, where they're allowing it to make up the budget per se in dollars, says we only have to reduce our SCG by $37,000. However, we cannot get complacent and get comfortable thinking, well, we'll make up all this money with K-5, because K-5 and ELT are still earmarked for those purposes. So with what we've seen from last year, because before last year, K-5 was a grant and it wasn't included in our SCG. So then when they included it in our SCG last year, and then they included the ELT, then they gave us a projected membership. But during the year, they made the adjustment on the membership and they said, you're only generating so much. So they did adjust our June SCG to reflect those membership numbers. So what we have had to do here is we've had to go through and say, we need to still earmark that money. Because if at any point they true up the numbers of participants in those programs, or we can't have those programs, there's a possibility that the state will adjust the June SCG. So we don't want to get comfortable with that money being allotted to the deficits up here. So what we've done in the adjustments is with the bars that I emailed you, there's 2 bars. One says maintenance bar and the other one says transfers. For us, for all intents and purposes, those are pretty close to the same thing, except maintenance stays within function and transfer goes out of function. Okay, so what we've done is we've been able to move the money. Now, where we found that we were able to adjust money is that, remember when also in special session, the legislative session said they were no longer approving a 4% increase in salaries. So we went from 4% to 1% in salaries for everybody except administration. Now, administration went from 4% projected increases to 0. So they left the administration flat at 0 to the same salary that we were funded for the year before. And then teachers and everyone that is not in a director or a supervisory position went to 0. Okay, so those pockets created by that were what we were able to shift into the extended learning portion that needs to be put aside, earmarked for those programs. Now, what they've allowed us to do is in the extended learning, and Dr. Carrillo's talked about that before, is that the 10 days that we're required to make up, they let us embed those into our extended learning time, which means when they say extended learning time is 10 days, the 10 days that we also have to make up are those same 10 days. So we'll make our program on extended learning by making sure that we have staff and students right now during distance learning on those Fridays. So there were 5 Fridays in the fall, which was October, and then there's going to be 5 Fridays in the spring. So the 5 Fridays that were handled in October will be paid out tomorrow. So the staff that attended, because since these are embedded in the extended learning time, the teachers and everyone that is assigned to work at that point are getting paid an extra day, because those Fridays were not in their original contract. So we went ahead and had everyone submit timesheets for when they worked during those 5 days. If there was a substitute, if somebody didn't work during that time frame, then they're not getting paid that extra day. Okay, it's whether they worked or not. And not everybody was required to work those days, because since it is under the extended time program, not everybody. So administration, like here, we didn't work, we didn't ask, we didn't do the extra day, we didn't pay an extra day, we worked the days that we are contractually needing to be here. Principals and some of the secretaries, they submitted time as well, and then the teachers that were on staff during those Fridays. So that is where the pay is coming out for those Fridays, is from the extended learning time. Now, in the bar, to simplify the bar to PED, it does not consist of every line that we have in our budget to make an adjustment. So what we took, if you look at SCG adjustment, the transfer bar, which is at the top, you'll see doc ID. It's got 024, and at the end, it's got a T. That one goes out of function. So we took whatever their retirement, those are retirement, FICA, health premiums, those are benefits that because we didn't pay 4%, weren't going to go up by 4% because now we're at a different base salary. So those created pockets of money in those particular funding lines. So retirement, FICA, health, salaries for support services, salaries for administration, whatever was adjusted down from the 4% to the 0% was taken from those lines. So that was able to make $220,000, sorry, from those lines into the additional compensation for K+ programs. Now that's not all of it, because if you notice on my spreadsheet, we were gonna have to put in like 400 and some odd $1,000. So the second bar goes within function, so it goes the 1,000 function to the 1,000, and we have teacher salaries, which was created by the 3% difference in the increase, and so on. So there's teacher salaries, some substitutes, and so forth went into, if you look at the bottom two lines, they went into K5 for teachers, 250,000, and extended learning time, 133,000. So these two bars put the money where it's earmarked for, so that it true ups what we've got in our system to what PED expects that we're supposed to have in our budget. Now, the next bar is the 37,000, and that's the decrease bar. That's the total decrease, which is 37,808. So we took that from the health and medical from the 22,000 and 2,200 function. There's some from board travel, because since there isn't any travel taking place right now, there's that pocket that we are able to take of 5,000, and then in the water there we took the other $2,800 from the water. No, I'm not showing the water. Now I'm sorry, I kept on talking and talking. You do have the bars that I emailed you, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, so these are the operational bars. So do you have any questions on the operational bars? Like I said, I've simplified the lines. There may be more maintenance bars as we go along to make up some of the areas but that we're discussing in the finance committee as we go, so that we make sure that we fund the line items that need to be funded. For instance, we have not made adjustments yet on the instructional materials, and what we've kind of looked at first glance is the math adoption is going to cost about $160,000. So we're in negotiations with the company to be able to pay half this year and half next year for the math adoption. And so if we put $75,000 from operational and then the $25,000 from the new grant, which is rural, then we've made up about $100,000, and all we'll have left is about $60,000 that we need to carry over to next year, as far as the cost. The other is that we are looking at the budget now that we've made the adjustments, now that we've been able to put line items where we need to get it out of the salaries, where the pockets were in there and the salaries and benefits, we're able to go forth before the schools go back into session and actually provide supply line items to the schools. So we're in the process of doing that before we leave hopefully before we leave for Thanksgiving, so that if we're needing to make any purchases, any orders and so forth, those orders can be in place and hopefully be delivered by January, if we're due to start back. If we're not. Now, in the process of all of this, where we're reviewing, are we losing $1 million? Where's the $1 million going to be housed? Where are we putting it? It's earmarked and so forth. That's where we had to kind of put a halt on purchases that were not distance learning purchases. And so it wasn't that we weren't processing anything, it was that we needed to prioritize for what we were doing. Now we can start, because we've cleaned up that budget, we can now start to look at what the priorities are going forward. So with that being said, the budget process continues. We need to do these bars, especially the $37,000. We've got to get it in by November 30th to make sure that the PED has trued up what they've asked us to cut in the budget. So where we thought we were $1 million short, yes, we are, because we have to put it in a pool for K5 and ELT, but we can still, run those programs because K5 is elementary. We can look at, like I said, the math books and so forth. So we're continuing to look at those things. Any questions?
Terry, I have a question regarding the math books. I take it that's for the curriculum has just been adopted.
The curriculum that they've yes, that was adopted, and if we purchase those materials that are going to be adopted.
But there's also the existing curriculum Envision that there hasn't been books purchased for that yet either. Is that is that going to be purchased soon?
And as far as I know, the Envision math, as it continued in the adoption, those materials were purchased, not purchased, but they were part of the adoption, the initial adoption. So all they would have to do is order supplemental materials. And in the instance, if I remember correctly, but this is not something that I'm responsible for actually putting together the order, but from what I remember on the adoption, there was a lead principal that was doing the actual ordering of the supplemental materials or the consumables into their program. Now, if that didn't happen, I'm not aware of that, and I don't know. So we would need to go with curriculum on that and wait for Dr. Carrillo.
If you would, and also can you check on the curriculum for reading in the middle school?
What is
that they don't have materials? I don't know if Mr. Avalos is there. Do you know about
I'm here.
this,
I don't understand what is your question, sir?
If we have
in reference to what we're reading material, sir.
the curriculum for reading in the middle school.
We do have reading curriculum in place.
That's the reading aid, right, Pat?
We're doing Readers Writers Workshop, and then we're also of course, with our Circle grant, we do have a lot of emphasis on our reading at this point. So if you're looking for specific titles or things like that, I can't answer that question, but I know there's been a lot of resources put in order to back up the Readers Writers program that we do have at the middle school.
And for special ed as well? The information for teachers?
They're included as I would have to say that, we do have a lot of materials at the school. So the students that are able to participate in the Readers Writers are doing that as well. You know, we're pretty much an integrated school where our students are going through and doing part of the regular, whatever the regular curriculum is. And then our special ed teachers, if they do need supplementary materials, you know, they need to get in contact with me and we'll get them lined out. But this is the first thing that I'm hearing of this. Okay.
Okay, we can look into it. I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mendoza, for the operational bars, it would be the transfer and maintenance bars go together, and then the decrease bar is the second bar. So I don't know if you need to recommend approval on each one or that, but I'm done with operational.
Well, let's go ahead and get it all together.
I would like to take them all 5 at a time, Terry.
So you want me to present the rest of them?
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and that way we could do
Okay.
all of those at one time. If
Okay,
that's all right
that's
with
fine.
Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, sir. Let's go with it.
Okay, so the next bar that we have here is the CLSD, which is the Comprehensive Literacy. This is the year 2. And so all it is the carryover from year 1 and final award. So the award letter was in your packet. The adjustment for that would be to increase the budget of the CLSD by $266,000. And what that does is carry over what was budgeted last year that didn't get used. So it's budgeted in the lines of professional development, supplies and materials, and then the 128, so the supply assets is what we use the portion of this grant that was allotted for the Chromebooks. So that's the CLSD grant. Does anybody have any questions on that one? So that would bring the grant to the 1,000,009. That's the award letter for comprehensive literacy. No questions on that one?
Go to the next one, Terry.
Okay. The next one is the Circle grant. And this one, what we're budgeting here is the $884,000. And this is for year 3 of the Circle. What happened with this one is this was submitted in June as a budget to get approved by the June 30th cutoff for the actual to be in the budget. But for some reason, at the PED level between program and fiscal, the budget got zeroed out. So the only thing they approved at that point was $191,000 that was already encumbered for the Chromebooks. And so all we're doing here is reapproving the grant for year 3.
If we delay her to get her test on Thursday, then she's gonna be, and then we don't know.
Okay, so that was that's the Circle grant. No questions on that one?
That'd be cool. That'd be real.
Go to the rural, please.
Okay, the rural low income is the one that I just presented the application. And so it comes down to 3 lines. It comes down to the textbooks at $25,000, the software, which is the Go Guardian, split $7,000 for elementaries and middle school and $3,000 for the high school. And then the last one is general supplies and materials, which is for connecting and also for the family engagement. So that's the bar for that. And then the indirect costs is $1,600. So that's the 5 bars that I have.
The administration recommends that you approve as presented by Terry.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
This is Gilbert. I thank Terry for the work that she's done, and we're getting the budget committee to be a lot more functional than it has been. And there's a lot still to discuss and improve on. So I look forward to that. And with that, I'll make a motion that we accept these recommended changes, or the bars, I should say.
Motion by Mr. Guadiana, second.
Gomez, second.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
Yes.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion passes. Moves us to item B, Mr. Mendoza.
We have the review of bills, Terry?
Yes, what I submitted to you is the check register for July through September to cover the expenditures and bills that were incurred during the first quarter. And this was in your packet, so if you have any questions on any particular expenditure, I can answer that.
This is Gilbert. Can I send a list of the ones that I have some questions on? This is $5 million worth of expenditures, and it's from such a long time ago.
Sure.
I'm not happy with our review process nor our timeliness.
And the reason, if I can say just a couple of things, and the reason it's $5 million, if you look at the debt service, that's always due in July. So that's $1.5 million that we pay to the loan for the bond, and then the bulk of the expenditures for these periods, and that's the reason too that it's all compiled, is that it's salaries for July, August, and September. But if you have specific questions, yes, if you send me a list, I'll be happy to go over those with you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that, if no questions, the administration recommends that you approve the review of bills as presented.
You heard the recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Motion by Cordova.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second, Gomez.
Second by Mr. Gomez. Any other questions? Call for the vote. Mr. Holguin,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana,
I abstain.
Mr. Gomez,
Yes.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion passes. Moves us down to superintendent report. Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, as requested, I have with us a report on the failure rates, and this will be the secondary level. We'll pick up the elementary at the next board meeting, and we'll start out with Mr. Ppe Avalos. Mr. Avalos?
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Mendoza, obviously, we have completed our first grading period. And, right now we are having to make some adjustments and do a lot of different things in order to try to get our students up to par as far as meeting expectations in classrooms. Right now, we have taken surveys of kids, all our kids, to see whether or what the levels are as far as F rates in our schools. We did look at either every student that had an F or one or more F, should I say. And, of course, our numbers right now are a little high. that could be attributed to different things. Of course, with the new model of education, computer-based online schooling has definitely had a lot of difficulties. Of course, at our school this year, we did pull in 2 different grades. We pulled in, of course, our 6th graders. We pulled in our 7th graders, both of which who have not ever been in the middle school setting, going from 1 standard teacher now to as many as 8 teachers. Some of them, of course, doubling up with teachers as they also teach different subject matter. And that has been a huge adjustment. Of course, the fact that we had a lot of kids that did not have access to Chromebooks or had problems either with connectivity, things of that nature. So a lot of factors weighed into how our students have done. We're continuing to make adjustments. Of course, our teachers as well are making adjustments. We're having to teach them and make adjustments in the sense of them, how their grading scales are, when they were going to accept levels of work, to what degree, how many weeks back, things of those nature. We were trying to work that out during the first grading period. Of course, our levels right now, for example, our 6th graders had 61% of our 6th graders did have 1 or more Fs. 59% of our 7th graders had either 1 or more Fs. And then 41% of our 8th graders, who of course were probably more well adjusted to the middle school, had the lowest number at 41%. Obviously, those numbers were high. On the flip side, I also went ahead and looked at honor rolls. Of course, we're focusing on the negativity, but I wanted to also take a look at on the flip side of that, the students that had adapted well are doing what they need to do to get up into the honor area. We did have about 32% of our 6th graders did get on the honor roll this year, or this first 9 weeks. Our 7th graders kind of struggled with 29%. And again, our 8th graders, again, didn't do so bad with 43%, over half. They were a little bit more than the Fs. And, just that's a tribute to the students who are adapting to this new system. And obviously we have to look at what we're going to need to do to correct those. And, in talking to Ms. Montoya, who's also coming up here in a minute, I don't want to take away some of her steam and some of her, some of the measures that you're taking in their school. But I think that, we've had to make a lot of contact with kids. Unfortunately, when you're looking at students and trying to make contact with them, the technology issues also, when you're trying to email kids, they're not answering their emails. They're not attending class. They're not doing the work. And surely they're not going to answer their emails a lot of times. We try to get it. Of course, we call phones by phone. A lot of times those numbers are, even at this point, this far into the school year, a lot of them are outdated. Parents aren't answering calls. We have to result in a couple things. I know this year I've had to go and knock on some doors, and which is not very uncommon, but we've had to do it a little bit more to a higher extent, just to try to get contact with kids, to get them to buy into the system, buy into what they need to do as far as who they need to be looking for as far as teachers, even knowing that the kids are having a hard time. And even at the point where we could bring kids in to work with them one-on-one, we've had to do things like that. And as far as that goes, that's what we're doing at the middle school. The normal parent-teacher contacts, we're setting up Google Meets with parents and teachers, and just to trying to get that contact going. And in a lot of cases, kids are still having a hard time responding to those things. So that's what we're trying to do. I'm hopeful to see that our numbers for the second grading period will improve at this point. We're still struggling with a lot of those same kids. Some of them have improved, but it's still a work in progress. We got a long ways to go. And I can mention a few more things, but like I said, when Mrs. Montoya comes on, if she doesn't mention something, I probably will come on and just mention those different measures that we're taking as well. Okay. Any questions?
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Good evening again, board, Mr. President, Mr. Mendoza. At the high school level, we are trying to do different things. We are working with student council right now to get a virtual spirit week going. We're trying to get activities going to get the kids involved virtually to see if that will help motivate them into attending their classes going up and beyond. We also have made tons and tons of phone calls, visits. With us, our honor roll, we had 150 students. We did the honor roll drive-through. More than half of the students came by, got the certificate and a candy bar. We also have started a Student of the Month recognition program, a Teacher of the Month. And so Student Council and we call it the Sunshine Committee, have purchased items to put in that a little goodie bag for the Student of the Month and Teacher of the Month. Our teachers are working endlessly trying to get these kids motivated. We are still working with them to improve their first quarter grade along with their second quarter grade. So it is a battle, but we have made a couple of grade changes for the first quarter. So the numbers I'm about to give you aren't going to be real true numbers because I got this off of my report for the first grading period. So in our senior class, we had 11 students who had 1 F or more. With those students, we met with them. We had started our early release program for seniors, and with the knowledge of them knowing that if they don't maintain their grades when we come back in January, that senior release would be taken away and they would be put into classes to help make up those credits. Right now, I think 3 of those Fs have been changed to Cs or Bs. So they're starting to understand that they need these classes to graduate. That's our main goal, is to get them graduating. We had 31 11th graders with 1 F or more, 37 10th graders, and 41 for the freshmen. I think the freshmen weren't used to the online and the core areas of instruction to where our standards are set really high. We have kept those standards high and we expect a lot from the students. But like I said, they're coming around. I think by us getting these other extra programs going, the Student of the Month, the honor roll drive-throughs, virtual academic stuff, virtual spirit weeks going, that it's going to help with the motivation for these students.
Thank you, Mr. Avalos and Ms. Montoya. Any questions, board? Any comments?
I have a question. Have you seen any results from the people participating in the conditioning programs?
Yes, their grades have been improving. The coaches, I think the students are getting more involved into the coaches' classrooms to ask for the extra help. So yeah, there has been some improvement.
I'm particularly happy to see the seniors down to 11 that
Yes.
have that grade. That is incredibly awesome.
Yes, it is. And then we also, and I didn't really get to talk to Mr. Pena, we did just get our SAT scores back from the students that came in and tested. I think we tested maybe 15 students for the SAT. Scores were really impressive.
Wow.
So we were excited, except I was running out and he was trying to tell me as I was running. So I'll find out more tomorrow on that one.
That's good. That's awesome. The one thing I have for both you and Mr. Avalos is, are we overtaxing our teachers as well as you guys in terms of what needs to be done? I am still concerned about not having augmented some support for you guys. So how are teachers as well as you guys handling the workload?
I know at the high school level, Mr. Avalos, you can answer at the middle school, but what we are instilling is less is more, to hit the core areas of the standards that they need and not to try and overload the students. Some are adapting better than others, so we're still working on it. I think right now everyone feels overwhelmed. And I think it's just because we don't know if we're coming back or not. And not knowing what's going to happen is the struggle. I do meet a lot with the special ed teachers because they are bringing in the special ed students and they love it. They feel that students need to be there. Again, it's 1 or 2 students, so it's not the majority. But we're trying to instill the less is more philosophy into everyone and mastering what they're working on.
You know, on our side as well, you know, that's been a common theme all the way through. Less is more. I know with our SoCo grant, a lot of the teachings have been going on. Professional developments have really been stressing that less is more. Development of mini lessons, things of that along that line. I think that's been a good thing. The timing of it has been really good, is what we're trying to instill in our school teaching. As far as teacher fatigue and grading and things of that nature, I get some comments from our teachers, sometimes thinking that they may be working pretty hard, you know, and maybe even in some cases harder than the students. And they still have that drive. They still want that, you know, there's a lot of students that are meeting whatever they're putting out there and doing a good job with it, but there's still a lot of kids that are not quite at that level. We're still trying to adapt to the middle school concept with a lot of our kids. Little by little, they're gradually getting it. They're coming along. But you know, we just got to keep pumping our teachers up, and you know, there's a lot of times when they feel a little bit that they're not getting everything back that they wish they could get back from their students. In the virtual setting, it's kind of hard to make contact with them. It's kind of hard to get that point across a lot of times. So, you know, I think Ms. Montoya, all the administrators across the district, we're really trying to pump up our staff members and just to let them know that the efforts that they are putting out there do not go unrecognized. And the fact that they're trying to get the most out of their students in a very difficult time. You know, I think whatever we can do to support our teachers, just to give them that extra incentive, a few kind words, whatever the case may be, goes a long ways in this day and age right now.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and certainly that is the heart and the soul of any effort that we have. And I appreciate all that's being done, and I would hope that we could augment, especially the number of times that you guys have to spend on the phone trying to contact somebody when you have lessons going on and students that need help. I would hope some of that get mitigated with some augmented staff to be able to help you in making those contacts. But please convey our appreciation of yourselves as well as the teachers particularly.
We will.
Yes, both of you, Mr. Montoya and Mr. Avalos, do give them our congratulations and a pat on the back because of all the work they do.
Thank you. Sure will.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I agree with that. This is Gabe. You know, our teachers are boots on the ground. You know, they're the front lines for our kids, and what they're doing is, you know, commendable. So thank them for it. Sure.
If you could give us updates kind of on your progress when you can, we'd appreciate that, because the numbers are important, and certainly seeing the numbers of seniors is a great relief to me, but there's still work to be done, and I applaud you on what you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Montoya, this is Gabe. I have a question. It's sort of a sidebar, but you know, you brought up the SATs and how well the students did on that.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you sort of, to your knowledge, can you explain where colleges are at with the SAT and the ACT scores and how that may impact positively or negatively our seniors?
So right now, from my understanding, a lot of the universities are waiving the test scores. I know they did that for this past year, and some of them are looking at doing it again for the following year. A lot of the universities are also waiving it on their own, to where as long as they have their high school diploma and a certain GPA, that covers their testing. I know Western gives you their own test anyway to see if you have to be placed in remedial classes. For the ones that do take tests, I know the ACT is given at Western every month. They've made the accommodations for the 6 feet apart. So that's helping the students. I know Mr. Pena sends out information all the time to the juniors and seniors about registering. We're fortunate to get free fee waivers for the ACT. So our students get to take the ACT free for 4 times. So we normally get them started either at the end of their sophomore year or the beginning of the junior year. That way they can show the progression.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I had heard that, they were waiving those test scores, and I was just wondering if there was a negative impact, a positive impact. I mean, if a student decides to take it and they don't do that great on it, is there going to be like a negative impact to their ability to get scholarships or admission or whatever?
No, I don't think so. And a lot of scholarships do ask for testing scores. But from what I know right now, they're not holding much weight on the testing due to the situation we're in.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the info.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and also a lot of the universities are in the same boat we are. They're all online also, so
yeah,
they're just kind of working. We're in the same boat, I guess. Okay, Mr. Mendoza.
First of all, thank you, Ms. Montoya, Mr. Avalos. You guys can go back and have dinner now, or the late nights and can go to bed pretty soon. Oh, first of all,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mendoza. One thing I was going to ask you was, how many coaches do we have, or interventionalists do we have? And I think if that's more pertinent to the elementary or to the middle school or to the high school, how many interventionalists do we have, and in what area?
You know, in terms of the assignments, I would defer that to Mr. Carrillo, but Terry, since you guys do payroll and stuff, can you answer that? I don't know if Terry.
I can answer the high school part. We have 1 reading coach and 1 interventionist, and then a math specialist that helps between Snell and the high school.
So we have the same. We have 1 coach, 1 interventionist, and then we share between Sandra and us. We share the math interventionists as well.
So
at Central, we have 2 interventionists, and we have 1 coach, and then we also share a math coach throughout the district.
Okay, and so the interventionalists are of what discipline?
English.
Reading specialists.
Yeah.
No math interventionalists?
Yes, we do.
But it's one district wide.
Yeah.
If I may, the reading interventionists and the coaches are funded through the CLSD and the Circle, and it is for specifically for reading. The math intervention and coach are through the Title I program.
Okay,
So we didn't get extra funding for the math.
And with that, what are the classes that people are getting Fs on? Are they largely math, reading?
I have to say, in our respect, it's going to be across the board. We're seeing some in science. We're seeing some in history. Of course, you know, our elementary students are coming in now to a new foundation of having science and history on a daily basis, in which they weren't doing that at the elementary level. And that's been an adjustment for them as well, as coming into the secondary now, the secondary model of teaching. But we are seeing them in math. We're seeing them in you know, all across the board. You know, it's not just specific to any topic or subject, should I say.
And that's the same at the high school. It's around all subject areas.
So we don't have any interventionalists for science or history?
No.
No.
Okay.
If I may add to that, though, our interventionists, we do have lab teachers that are either are core specialists, not necessarily English or reading, but we do have some core teachers, science and history teachers who are part of the Circle grant as well. That does incorporate that. So they are getting special training to be able to implement the reading and writing structures within the core setting of history and science. So it has branched out in that respect, and that's a good thing.
And is special ed fully staffed or staffed adequately to? I know last year there was issues with, but it had to do with observations or one-on-ones. But I guess that's not the case anymore. But it's adequately staffed for what we're doing.
That's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Mendoza.
You're on mute, Mr. Mendoza.
Okay, I'd like to poll the board for the special meeting on Monday. Regina prefers to have a morning meeting, so she says that if you could help us out by, is 9 o'clock okay with everybody to sign up? She says it shouldn't take that long. I don't know, Mr. Sepulveda, any comments?
It's okay with me.
Mr. Holguin?
I'm usually in my staff meeting at work from 8:30 till about 9:30, so maybe hard for me to get on.
Okay, Mr. Guardiana?
I'm open anytime. Would 10 o'clock be better for Mr. Holguin?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to, and Mr. Gomez, what do you think?
I think 10 would be better, if possible.
Okay, Mr. Cordova, could you give us a time?
10 would be fine.
Mr. Sepulveda, 10's fine?
Yeah.
Okay, Gabe, 10's fine?
10 works for me.
Okay, so we'll write it down, Irene, for 10 o'clock.
Could you make sure that we get the materials that we're supposed to have?
Supposedly, they're gonna send it to us tomorrow, okay? And they're gonna come to Irene, and Irene will forward them.
Well,
Irene's
Irene was,
telling me you all should already have the flyer, which I call the brochure. You should have it if you just open it up after the meeting, so you can look at that.
okay.
Anything else, Mr. Sepulveda, on that, I guess?
No.
And we're announcing that the next board meeting is December the 14th, and that'll be at 5 o'clock, via YouTube live stream. But I also have a request of the board, because we just received the letters this morning. We have another request. And Terry, can you talk about that real quick?
Yes, we got the two carryover letters for we got the two carryover letters for Idea B, which is Idea B entitlement and Idea B preschool. So those carryover letters are also due. They've set November 30th as the target date to get, to get all our bars in. We just got those letters today, so if it would be possible, we could do the bars for that, and Melissa and I will work on those on Wednesday so that we can get those out to you by Thursday.
So we would just add that to the agenda, and it shouldn't take us that long to get them. And Terry, you'll get it to them. You and Melissa will get them to them.
Yes,
Hopefully later on tomorrow.
Melissa and I are scheduled to work on those on Wednesday. So by Thursday, we should be able to have those bars ready.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The next board meeting, of course, December 14, that concludes my superintendent's report. I haven't seen Toya online today. Is anybody?
I'm here. She's here.
Okay. Toya, do you want to speak to us? Any report?
I have one concern. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
So this week, a concern was brought up to me. I don't know if this would be towards Ms. Montoya or would be towards, but the eligibility of graduation for seniors, since nobody's eligible to graduate because of the testing, since we weren't able to test last year. How is that?
So the state has, or the PED has put out some new guidance for that. We are going to be able to use your testing from your freshman and sophomore years. We'll still be able to use the EOCs. So there is guidance. And then if you still haven't passed EOCs, then we can go to portfolios.
Okay, because that was the concern, because a lot of us have our EOCs for math and our other classes. It's just we didn't take EOCs for our language arts classes. So that's what was most concerning for a lot of people.
Yeah, and Mr. Peña and I have already started looking at that to see exactly who is eligible for graduation, depending on what test we use. If we use freshman and sophomore tests, a lot more are eligible for graduation. So we're trying to use everything that the state is allowing us to get you guys graduated.
Okay, sounds good.
And if you're missing anything, Mr. Peña and I will get a hold of you and bring you in to get the testing done.
Okay. That is all I have.
Thank you, Toya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toya. Okay, at this time, we move on to public input. Do we have anything out there, Victor?
Yeah, you have Frank Arias posted, can some type of education pod be set up for the students that are struggling? That is the only comment.
Okay. All right. Anything else? That was it?
Okay.
Okay. Items for next agenda. The only thing I have is our special meeting on Monday.
Okay, I have nothing at this point.
Can I just request
Oh, yeah,
that?
the elementary failure report will be one of those on the superintendent's.
This is Mr. Diaz, just a reminder that we would want to present again on going indoors.
Okay, and Ms. Montoya, can you please be ready to present too on the band? How's it going, or how are we gonna do? And how are you all planning to get them indoors? And,
Yes, sir.
Okay, please give us a plan on that.
Mr. Mendoza, Mr. Peru and I can be ready to give a status on the bonds.
Sure.
Okay.
It's, Irene's writing all that down. Yes, okay. All right.
Are you asking for the December meeting as well for the agenda, or just?
Yes, sir, the December meeting too, because we already set the one coming up next week. Do you have any, Mr. Guardiana?
The continuation of the readiness.
Okay. And we're getting a bond update from Terry's and Peru.
And in the interim, we're gonna have a budget committee meeting, I think,
Yes.
19th, Terry?
Yes.
It's not
The
next
18th,
week.
I think it's 18th,
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I'm sorry, the 18th.
the 18th.
Okay, and in that, can we take a look at, again, the preparation, the equipment preparation, as well as staffing?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I answer the parents' concern that Victor had said about the education pods? I think if the parents call the schools and talk to the principals, they can work with the parents on the extra help that students are in need of.
Okay.
I know that if it's Bayard Elementary, they're doing some tutoring in small pods. I just don't know if that's which school it is.
Yeah. Who'd you say that was, Victor?
Frank
Lee
Audio?
Vargas.
Okay, okay, thank you.
I
Anything
did
else?
mention for him to send us an email to the support at cobre.k12.nm.us email address, and I would forward that directly to Mr. Mendoza.
Very good.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Colville, so move.
Okay, we adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.